Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brien Hanley. Thank you for joining us on Big 12 Insiders. Welcome back. We appreciate everybody being in here. Today, we've got our man, Jake Hatch from Locked On BYU Cougars that is on the show today, talking to us about the BYU Cougars, this big matchup with Texas Tech coming up on Saturday. Game day is going to be in town. It is the football game of the weekend, ladies and gentlemen. And the good thing for me, we don't have to wait around all day for it. It's literally first thing in the morning. So I think that's a great thing. We'll see if BYU believes that, because there's been some talk that they don't necessarily like playing these early games. I think that's just a bunch of talk, though. But either way, appreciate everybody being in here. Before we start, remember to continue to like, follow, subscribe. Continue to get in the comment section and always hit the notification bell so you know when Big 12 Insiders content comes out. First, Jake, how are you doing today, my man?
I'm doing great. You mentioned it's a big week. Essentially the eyes of the college football world are going to descend on Lubbock, Texas on Saturday morning.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just 2 weeks in a row that the Big 12 has gotten the spotlight. That's something that at the beginning of the season, I don't think anybody would have thought was going to be possible. But for me, and we kind of talked a little bit about it yesterday on the show, is that it's 4 different teams. Yeah. Is that it was Utah and Cincinnati getting spotlight last week, and this week it's BYU and Texas Tech that are getting the spotlight. So I think that's a great thing for the conference, Jake, that to have that spotlight, especially on a network that most people believe, and it's not just us being naive or it's reality that we don't get the benefit of the doubt from that network, and yet here we are in November getting the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, it is a great sign. I think the SEC bias that ESPN's been carrying all season long, they kept getting hit over the head figuratively and by everybody saying, hey, stop it with the SEC, stop with the SEC. Yep. Well, guess what? They finally responded, okay, well, we'll give you the Big 12. And the nice part is there's only 2 ranked-on-ranked matchups this week, and this one, speaking of BYU and Texas Tech, it's top 10 teams. This is the game of the week by far, and for the Big 12, it's the game of the year to date.
Absolutely. So let's talk about, BYU. They had an off week last week. First off, how did they spend it? What did they look good? Like, did they take a little bit of time off? Obviously, they let guys rest that needed to rest. We'll talk about LJ Martin here in a quick sec. But how did they spend this off week?
So they got to work. They went Monday through Wednesday. They kind of followed their same protocol in terms of practices and the like. Now, it wasn't nearly as intense as a game week preparation would be in terms of the install and the like. But they worked Monday through Wednesday, and then they had Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday off to help guys get off their feet. Some guys went home to see their families, so gave them a chance to really relax a little bit. That was a BYU team going into that bye week that severely needed a break. And they played 6 straight games. Coming out of the Iowa State game, you mentioned LJ Martin, him getting injured in that game. Jack Kelly was in a sling once again after that game. So they needed some downtime, and it sounds like they used it to help guys heal up. Was the number one goal from this past bye week, was to get guys off their feet, let them rest up, heal up, and hopefully be as fresh as possible for Texas Tech.
Gotcha. LJ Martin, in my opinion, best back in the conference. I mean, and it's not just because, a lot of times, Jake, people say, well, he's got the most yards. Of course, he's the best back. And that's not always true. Matter of fact, I'll be willing to say a lot of times that's not true just because somebody has the most yards. But if you watch football and you pay attention to football, you can look at him and say, okay, this guy's got it. This guy has absolutely got it. Best back in the conference, in my opinion, and probably in most people's opinion. But how's the shoulder? How's he looking? I know they said he's coming back, but how's he looking?
It's anybody's guess. Even offensive coordinator Aaron Roderick, we were out at practice earlier this week, and he said that we're going to find out on Saturday how good he is. I got to give him credit for being willing to play through an injury that it sounds like it could be severe enough that he could sit out and miss some time. But I think he understands where things stand for BYU now. They're ranked in the top 10. They're undefeated. And he knows how close they came to the Big 12 title game a season ago because he was right there in the thick of things. And
Right.
I think he's willing to put on, much like a guy like Jack Kelly, because the injury that Jack Kelly absorbed earlier this season, Brien, a lot of other players would have had season-ending surgery and would have called it quits. All he did, hey, shoot me up, give me a brace, let's go out there and play ball. So it's cool to see guys like that put on for their team. The damage is there, but they said, you know what, let's just go out there and play ball. But to your point, LJ Martin, he's been the heart and soul of this offense for BYU all year long. I know that Bear Bachmeier takes a lot of the headlines just because he's done so much for this team. But I'm telling you, number 4, he has been absolutely critical to any and all success BYU has had.
Yeah, he has. Yeah. And it's easy to see, and you're right. Bear Bachmeier gets the most of the headlines, just like a quarterback does. But when you turn on the tape and you watch BYU, you're kind of like, oh, yeah, that's the guy, and it's not hard to see, it is what it is. Speaking of that, you touched on it just a second, Jake, is that last year they started 9-0. And I don't want to say that the bottom fell out because it's not like BYU got blown out in football games. That's not what happened. But they did lose 2 games in a row. This year, 8-0.
Yeah.
Why won't the same thing happen this year? Now, granted, it could be, but I guess the better question is why will this year be different or could be different?
I think they learned a hard lesson a season ago because I do think they started reading the press clippings and starting to believe that they had arrived a season ago because they got to 9-0. They beat Utah. Life was good. They're ranked in the top 10, much like they are this season. But then all of a sudden, they had a kind of a fluky loss to Kansas, and then Arizona State. They fell behind early and had to kind of grind their way back into that game and came very close to getting a win down there in Tempe, but came up short. They saw what happened because the strength of record metric came into effect with the tiebreakers and the like, and they missed out on going to Arlington by mere decimal points. It felt like they have said all season long. I'm telling you, going back to August when training camp began, they talk about going from good to great. They believe they were really good a season ago, but they want to be great. And what great means is playing for a Big 12 title, being in the college football playoff, and that's their goal this year.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's. I mean, how the tiebreakers and all that stuff work is just insane. And then to me, and I've been screaming. I screamed when it happened, and I've been screaming about it basically ever since. And how BYU got hosed out of the college football playoff last year, but yet somehow SMU got in, which I was there. I watched it with my own eyes. BYU come to Dallas, beat that SMU team, but somehow on the field, it absolutely didn't matter. But that's a different conversation for a different day. I'm sure it's not good talking to people, BYU fans, about that either. Let's turn the attention to the games on Saturday. Huge game like we talked about. Tech presents a lot of challenges in a lot of different ways. But they are going to present – now, BYU's defense is very good. It's very good. It has been very good for the last 2 years. But Tech is different. It was where – they can grind it out on you and run the ball, which is something that most people don't really think. And I know nationally they are like, oh, Tex just throws it around the lot. It's the old my leech, which they can do that. But they also run the ball very, very well. What does BYU have to do to try to stop that offense?
Well, they got to shut down that run game, and that's what this whole defense under Jay Hill's predicated upon. They want to make teams one-dimensional, and the dimension they want to take away is the run game, because if you can run the football in college football in this day and age, you control the tempo, you control the pace of the game, and more often than not, you're going to win the football game. BYU has to prove they can slow down this rushing attack from Texas Tech. They got gashed multiple times against Iowa State, and I think that was a lot of it due to the fact they lost Sialia Serra, their star middle linebacker, to an injury early on in that game. He's expected to be back for this game. I thought Jack Kelly and Isaiah Glasker maybe looked like they were like 70% of what they typically are. Hopefully those three in particular are as healed up as they possibly can be going into this game, because when they're at their best, BYU's rush defense is at its best, and I think that'll be a critical element. You got to be able to slow down this rushing attack, if not shut it down, and put this game on Baron Morton's arm.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that, when a team can do multiple things and attack you in multiple ways, you got to be able to stop one. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, Tech can still throw it, and if you force them to throw it, you're still going to have your hands full, but you can't have your hands full with both. You got to stop one, because if not, and it's not just Tech, it's anybody, it becomes impossible.
Mhm.
Speaking of that, as far as being balanced, BYU, and I know I've talked to you before, and I've said this over the last couple of years since we started the show over the last 19 months.
Mhm.
BYU kind of had I don't know if you'd call it a resurrection, but a change in a culture as far as they became a physical football team the second year in the Big 12. The first year, they didn't realize how physical you had to be and maybe didn't have the people to be physical. Well, that changed the second year, and we saw the results last year. To me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Jake, it looks like they've leaned even more into that physicality this year to be an even more physical football team. You look at them as far as the offense, it's really balanced. And I know going back to the old days, people again think BYU, they're fourth in the conference as far as total offense. They think, well, they just throw it all around. No, they don't. They run the football, man. They're extremely balanced. And it's going to present problems. I know Tech's defense is really good, and it is. And they shut down the run. What are some of the ways they're going to be able to run the football or try to run a football? Because Tech only gives up 74 yards a game, which is crazy.
Yeah, so you'll try and get as much as you can out of LJ Martin because, as I said, Aaron Roderick says they're not even 100% sure what they're going to get out of him. So you hope you can get something out of him. Obviously, he's not going to be 100%. So how you counter that is using the other running backs on the depth chart who have different skill sets. Enoch Nawahine is kind of a short yardage, put your head between the tackles and just kind of grind out 2, 3, 4 yards. You have a guy like Preston Rex, who's a wide receiver growing up, who can be a weapon in terms of the passing game out of the backfield. And BYU has used their wide receivers, Parker Kingston and guys like Cody Hagan, in the rushing attack, and they'll use that on fly sweeps, that tornado reverse they've used a couple of times this season to great effect. So that's how you're going to have to manufacture it. It's going to be a little maybe more smoke and mirrors in terms of generating rushing offense than it has been in the past. Because you're right, BYU's whole philosophy is they are big, burly men is probably the best description for what they want to be on offense, and they want to jam it down your throat. Well, when you don't have your star running back at 100%, that's probably going to have to go out the window just a little bit. You'll still try and get what you can out of that, but you have your offensive line say, you know what? Do your job, open the holes, and trust that the guys that are behind you, they're going to find those holes and exploit them.
And I love hearing you say that actually, Jake, because what it sounds like to me is that, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that every game that coaches and players don't put their all into every game, but it seems that BYU understands how big a football game that this is. Now, again, their schedule is not easy after this. They still got to finish the year. Don't get me wrong, but it's like all hands on deck. Whatever we have to do to win a football game, we are going to do this week. It kind of sounds like that's what you're saying.
Yeah, that's kind of been their whole thing this year because they've come back in 3 different Big 12 games. It feels like no matter what circumstance they have found themselves in to this point, Brien, they found a way out of it. And that's a credit. There's a saying out there from the guys at the Solid Verbal. I know you know Dan and Ty. They say winning is a skill. I wholeheartedly endorse that. Winning is a skill. You don't go 19-2 over the past 21 games like BYU has without learning how to win football games from literally every circumstance it feels like under the sun. So yeah, they're gonna find themselves against the best team they have played to date in Texas Tech, and they're gonna put their heart and soul into this game. And if they come out with a victory, yeah, they're gonna be feeling really good about themselves. But I guarantee they are gonna put everything they've got into this game.
Yeah, I can't wait for the football game. I think it's just going to be a hell of a game because, again, I'm an old offensive lineman. Yeah. And physicality, like I said, it rules the day. It doesn't always mean you're going to win who the most physical team because things happen. You could be the most physical team, but if you turn the football over 4 times, that changes things. Yeah. But usually physicality rules the day. And this is a game where both teams want to be extremely physical and just say, we want to either move you against your will or we're not going to be moved. And I love that about football. We're going to see it here. Before I get you out of here, Jake, again, I thank you so much for your time, man.
Absolutely.
This is a huge game. A huge game, not just for BYU, but it's a huge game for Tech. And it's also big for, the Big 12 as a whole. We talked about it at the very beginning as far as the spotlight, but you start looking at college football playoff, indicators and rankings and all this stuff. This has huge implications because the winner of this, look, they still have to finish the season. I mean, we just saw last week where West Virginia jumped up and bit somebody who thought, hey, we've got an opportunity. Well, you better strap it on each and every week, and we know that about this conference. But, man, the winner of this game really sets themselves up because for the first time, Jake, it seems like the College Football Playoff Committee is actually respecting the Big 12, which is something that I don't think anybody thought was going to happen this year. But I think their hand has kind of been forced because of, number one, how good the teams are, and two, what's happening all around the country. It's like, look, if you're not going to rank us, why do you even have us included in this stuff? Because there's BYU, again, 7, probably a little low for me, but I'll take it. I think it's just got gigantic implications just for not for the teams, but also the conference in general, because to put a step forward in the college football rankings, because I got to think the winner of this game is going to jump up probably 2, maybe even 3 notches because of who they beat.
Yeah, and the good news also is whoever loses it probably doesn't drop that far either, Brien. And that's the good news. Is there's some people I saw lamenting the fact that there's only 3 Big 12 teams in the rankings. The good news, all 3 of those are ahead of every ACC team. So
yes,
that the dreams of a multi-bid Big 12 are absolutely legitimate, and it's led by BYU and Texas Tech. But Utah, they're not far off at number 13 because all you got to move up is just a handful of places in the rankings to have them in the field as well. So the hopes of a multi-bid Big 12, whether it's 2 or 3 bids, absolutely alive. And it's all going to depend on how these 3 teams finish the season. If they all finish the season, I know that Tech and BYU will go head-to-head. Let's say Tech does win this game, but BYU gets revenge in the Big 12 title game. That's not going to hurt the Big 12's perception.
No.
That shows that the true heavyweights of the league are throwing punches at one another and have really been winning at a high level. So it's really, really good, as you mentioned, to see the College Football Playoff Committee believing in the Big 12, its big programs. And the hope is that all 3 of these programs have a strong finish to the season and do us proud.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, before I get you out of here, game day's coming to Lubbock.
Yeah.
It's a huge game, and I know I've said that 100 times so far. It's a really big game, but it is. I mean, it's a big game for everybody. But I said this to a man, Jared Johnson, who covers the Red Raiders. It's that the game's early, and as a former player, as a player's perspective, I think it's great. Yes, the hoopla and all that stuff is out there, but I don't have to wait around all day. Like all this stuff is going on, and then we get right to the game. I don't have to wait till 2:30. I don't have to wait till 6. I don't have to wait till 8. It's just right off the bat. We are playing football and get this thing going. And I know there's a thing online, kind of a rumor mill going online that BYU doesn't like play. I'm sure it was started by a Utah fan, that they don't like playing, in day games. I got to believe, again, as a player, I would bet BYU players actually prefer getting this type of game and getting it on early.
Yeah, well, we talked to Parker Kingston, one of their star receivers, earlier this week, and he said, "You know what? I'm all about this 10 a.m." He said, "I can wake up and go play ball." He said,
"Yeah,
we like night games. Trust me, BYU's record is absolutely incredible in night games. And they're going to go right back to that next week when they play TCU at 8:15 Mountain Time. That's 9:15 Central, and they'll be back playing that Vampire Cougs persona the next week." But the nature of this game, you're right. They have heard all about this for 2 weeks, the build up to this matchup. But I think Parker's absolutely nailed it when he said, "You know what? We just get to wake up and go play ball. There's no having to wait around in the hotel and have to think about what's happening. No, you just wake up, eat breakfast, get to the stadium, strap it up, and go at it."
Yeah, I love it. I love that for them. So, well, Jake, again, man, thank you again for coming on and making some time for us. We really, really do appreciate you, man. Thank you for that. For people that don't know all the good stuff, again, tell everybody where they can find all the good stuff that you do on a daily basis, my man.
Yeah, so I do a daily podcast called Locked On Cougars, covering all things BYU, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Check it out on YouTube, much like Big 12 Insiders here. Also available wherever you get your podcasts. I also am working sports radio here in Salt Lake City for the KSL Sports Zone, do a daily morning show. So if you want to check that out, feel free to check that out as well. And if you want to hit me up on social media, you can see my social handle right down here, Jacob C. Hatch on X, aka Twitter. Love to chop it up with anybody and everybody.
Thank you, Jake. I appreciate you, my man. And thanks, everybody. Cannot wait for this game. Talk to you guys soon.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.